Welcome to this episode of the Heartbeat for Hire podcast. I feature Olympians, CEOs, disruptors, authors, professional athletes, and the best of the best, where they share their stories of resilience with my lens on leadership and culture. Let's get started. Greetings and welcome to this episode of the Heartbeat for Hire podcast. I am delighted to bring my guest to you today. 3 things you will learn from this episode are, number 1, what most leaders misunderstand about micromanagement. You know we like to talk about that topic. Number 2, what are some of the leading reasons companies don't grow? And number 3, why operations and culture go hand in hand. Please welcome to the show my friend Garrett Delph. Garrett shares a remarkable leadership story that took us from good intentions combined with micromanagement to almost getting fired to becoming an incredibly successful leader of multiple companies. His current company that he is CEO and founder of is called ClarityOps. He's a huge believer in fine-tuning culture and developing your leaders to drive business growth at scale. There is so much more to Garrett's bio, but I'm going to let him tell you about that. So Garrett, welcome to the show.
Hey, thank you, Lyndsay. It's great to see you. Thank you
Great
for
to
having
see
me.
you too.
Real privilege to be here with you.
It's my pleasure, and I've been looking forward to this. So, I start the show the same all the time, and the first question I'm going to ask you is, would you share some of your story?
Yes, I'm happy to. Uh, Maybe I'll just give a 50,000 foot overview of my journey, and then, we can dialogue. So I fall under the into the bucket of accidental entrepreneur. I went to college, got a degree, got into corporate America, did that whole grind, and it crept up on me. But I swear to you, one morning I woke up and I just couldn't do it anymore. And all I knew is 2 things: I couldn't work for anybody else, and I had to work for myself.
Mhm.
I had no idea what that looked like. And I think, sure, lots of opinions out there, but it is a double-edged sword when you go into being an entrepreneur in that way,
Mhm.
because the criteria to win as an entrepreneur is so tall and wide. And so you go in really not knowing anything except for maybe some work experience, which is an entirely different deal. Um, and that led me on this journey of building business, working with great people, failing a ton, learning a ton, and finding your rhythm and your flow into sort of how do you do what you love and make money too,
Mhm.
and hopefully make an impact on the world.
Mhm.
You know, and
Well, that's a good 50,000 foot.
yeah,
Let's
that is
down a
50,000.
smidge because I would really love it if you would share the story you shared with me of how you were managing your team and how ultimately Clarity Ops came into your view of a solution.
Yes. Okay. Yeah. And stop me if I missed something or didn't tell
Yeah,
a story
yeah.
that you like. Yeah.
No, no, go.
Um, so I by nature, pretty aggressive and focused on winning. And in the early days, I guess that takes us back to like 2005, 2007 for me. Um, I That's all I really knew is grind,
Mhm.
try to figure out how to win, and do everything you need to do to accomplish that goal. What I didn't realize I was doing is winning at the expense of the amazing people I hired to
Mm.
help us achieve our goals.
So what was going on in that when you were grinding? Because I think I know what was happening, but for the audience who might not be familiar with your story, what were the kinds of things that were going on?
Yeah. So one of the big ones was overloading people.
Mm.
I didn't understand how to load balance or distribute workloads evenly
Mm.
across all of the functions in the business. I kind of had this thing like, if you hire somebody smart, I think it was some bad reading I did. If you hire somebody smart, set them free, and they'll just do everything right, you know. And if you hire somebody smart, they have superhuman thresholds, which means they can take on more weight than most people. So that was a big fail. And so what I ended up doing is burning people out and expecting the world of them. That leads to the other big downfall during this season, and that is I didn't understand the leadership requirements to plan for your people,
Mm-hmm.
and what that meant, and give them rails and instructions, and what that afforded in terms of scale and ultimately achieving your goals. And so I was just sort of, flying fast, barking orders, and it's not always barking, right? But we're very audibly driven. Didn't write anything down. Assumed everybody understood what I was saying,
Mm.
and then I would get frustrated and upset when people didn't achieve the business goals that in my head I thought were so clear.
Right.
So I think that leads into one of the stories I shared with you about at the time, the chairman of my board came into my office and said, "Hey, dude, we need to talk." And he was, visibly upset. And he got right into it. And he said, "If you don't stop micromanaging your people, you're going to kill your company, and you're going to make a ton of enemies of these amazing people who have become friends of yours that are now leading." And I I did not know what to do with that.
Mm.
I'd actually never heard this term. Now, mind you, this a while ago, I wasn't on LinkedIn,
Yeah. Well, I don't
Uh,
think it was really a common term back then.
okay, yeah, okay, thank you.
I
I
really
sure,
don't. I think it became part of our nomenclature probably a
yeah,
decade later.
okay, fair enough. So that was devastating because here was this guy that I really thought the world of, and he really let me have it. So that led me on a journey to figure out what that meant and how it was manifesting itself from me into the business and into the people. And my big aha moment, which really leads then into kind of this journey to where how ClarityOps was founded in birth, is the big aha moment was I was out of control, meaning I didn't have control of the business systematically. And because I didn't have control, I couldn't drive.
Mm.
If a ship doesn't have a steering wheel, if a car doesn't have a wheel, you can't drive that thing. But you can accelerate.
Hmm.
You can put on the gas, right? You just don't have
Hmm.
control. And so, what I realized is I had no control. And so, my way of trying to control the uncontrollable was I was frantic
Yeah.
and I would grasp and I would do everything I could to right size all of the stuff that was going wrong. But at the end of the day, it never worked,
Mm-mm.
right? And all I ended up doing was creating this sort of, you, you know, um, cascading negative effect into the business, into the
Yeah.
people.
You were creating a big fat energy block, and
Yeah,
people were
yeah,
basically like, no more, I don't want it,
yeah,
too much. And also you were breaking their trust by pushing so hard and having such high demands, and they weren't feeling a sense of freedom. They weren't feeling a sense of fulfillment. They were really like, I've got to do this or leave.
yeah,
And they probably were pretty torn because they probably liked you too.
yeah. Uh, we'd hired a lot of really great people, become really great friends, really
Yeah.
great friends. Also, I created confusion
Yeah.
because they didn't understand. They were like, "Dude, what do you want?" And the truth of it is, I could never answer that
Yeah.
because I was not clear. I
Mm.
was not clear, which leads to ClarityOps. So as I unwound that and lifted up the business engine and began to drill in, go, okay, what is problem? What are the problems here? I didn't have control, and so I sought to seek getting control in the business. And what that led me to is realizing people need instructions,
Mhm.
and those instructions need to be measurable.
Mhm.
And what is measured needs to be well aligned to the outcomes of the business that you want. And turns out that's heavy lifting. I think it is part of why 9 in 10 businesses fail
Yeah.
because the top needs to be to the degree the top is clear about where they want to go and how they're going to get there. Generally, is the degree to which they do or don't.
Mhm.
So that ended up being a huge blessing in disguise. And so I just went on. I went Just as vigorous, and um, just as maniacal in this new direction of creating order and creating structure as I did on the other side without control. I just went the opposite way, and it led me to building frameworks that I would use to achieve that goal. So one of them is a framework called P3, people, process, and performance. I was like, how am I going to organize getting organized? You know?
Mm-hmm.
And so I determined, all right, first things first, I love these amazing people I'm working with. I have to demonstrate to them through care
Mm.
and planning for them that I need to earn their trust back, but also I need to give them rails so they can succeed.
Yeah.
And so, that got
Don't make
into,
it feel like you're moving the goalpost all the time. Yeah.
yes, yes,
Yeah.
you know. So that got into, core values, organizing an org chart. Org
Mhm.
chart has to have job descriptions that are clear about what people do, leadership agreements, right? That was and then process is the underbelly of caring for the people. And then ultimately it culminates into performance.
Yeah.
So, maybe 25,000 feet now,
Yeah. No, this is great. I
the
mean, this
journey.
is, I love this story so much because anytime I can have an evolved leader on, I love it because we're illustrating that you fully recognize that what you were doing was burning your people out. It wasn't
Yeah.
healthy for them, it wasn't healthy for you, and it certainly wasn't doing anything good for the company. But by recognizing that change and creating a clear vision,
Mm,
clarity, one of my favorite words,
mm,
by creating that for your people, that is care. That
mm.
is giving them achievable directions and purpose.
Yeah.
And that is something that is so smart and so important to growing businesses.
Mm,
So, in that process, I know you've created a bunch of frameworks.
yeah.
What are the key things that you notice that companies need in order to grow? Because you're not the only one that struggled with this. So,
Yeah.
what are some of the things you've learned?
Well, oh gosh, so much. Um, Here are a few things. Number one, I learned, I believe this, I guess it's debatable, but I learned that everything is operational. I learned that culture is operational
Mm.
and functions are operational.
Mm.
I learned that goals are operational. Everything has what I call chained goal attachments.
Hmm.
So if you go from the top of the org all the way to what Toyota calls the Genba, where the floor where nuts and bolts are assembled,
Hmm.
there are activities that are dependent on other activities that are dependent on other activities throughout the entire org, and that was a big mind opening for me to understand that, number one.
Hmm.
And so some other things I learned then are you have to understand where you want to go and back in. I
Hmm.
found that to also be a real powerful position to take as a leader
Hmm.
as you look at the business and the people that are going to get organized to help you achieve whatever you want to achieve in the business.
Hmm.
And so, what are all the dependencies? And then work backwards. And it's a really fascinating, fruitful exercise
Hmm.
to be able to look at all of the dependencies in the business and then connect them by design through organizational architecture and process.
Mm.
And it's really boring, Lindsay. Like
Yeah.
it's
Well,
really boring and you know, like
I
not
think
fun.
you said something that kind of, I knew I was going to come back to it because
Okay.
culture is obviously one of my favorite topics.
Yes.
And
Yes.
I don't think of culture as being operational. So
Hmm.
I want to dig in on why you say that. Um, but I think I know why. But I don't know that people think about it that way.
Right.
To me, culture is a feeling, and it is when someone asks you, "Are you happy in your job?" You're answering basically, do I like my
Mm.
boss, and how do I feel about my day to day? That's
Ooh.
generally what the answer is.
Yeah.
But I want to dig under, what does operationalizing culture mean? How do you do that?
It's great. Well, I love your thought about feelings
Mm,
because I do agree with you. I think in general, we tend to think of culture about culture is how you feel about your people and
yeah.
the business. Um, but here's what we know. Most people have feelings of anger, frustration. They have feelings of angst and worry.
Hmm.
They have feelings of burnout. They have gossip,
Hmm.
backbiting, complaining,
Mm,
infighting, right? These are all symptomatic of what's happening in the engine.
sure.
So the feelings are a result of all of the activities happening,
Yep.
right? So
Understood.
people get frustrated that they're not being promoted.
Yep.
Why are most people not being promoted? Probably, and I think this is true. I'd have to pull stats, but probably because the business didn't architect career paths that they could give to the people and say, when you join our company, we're hiring you because you're great. And we also want to value you and care for you by designing a way for you to grow and prosper in the business.
Hmm.
And by the way, in order for you to grow and prosper, make more money, get a better title, you have to follow this path. And every path has a test, and you have to pass those tests. But
Hmm.
if you follow them and you test correct, you're going to get paid more and you're going to have a
Hmm.
better title and you're going to grow with the company. Businesses don't do that, for
Not well,
example.
anyway.
Right?
So true.
Yeah, I mean, they mostly don't, at
Well,
least in
and
my
I
experience.
also have noticed that the businesses that turn their people efforts over to the bean counters,
Yeah.
they lose focus, and
Mm,
prioritizing people steps to the side, and it's all about money, and then everybody just becomes a number.
yeah.
So that is a reason why those career paths get stunted.
Fair
And
enough.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah, fair
So
enough.
continue. So,
Okay.
so
Yeah. I do love this topic. So
yeah,
if I
me
start
too.
monologuing, you can just
No,
say,
no, this
Garrett,
is
stop.
great. Keep going.
Another, I think, component of operationalizing culture is job descriptions. And so, what do recruitment teams and or HR teams usually do? They're not clear about what the business needs. So they go to Google and they go, find me a senior sales manager job description. And they download it and then they post it on their ad board.
Well, now they do it with AI, but yes, same.
Yeah, fair enough.
Hmm.
But the truth is, once that person gets hired, the job description really was just a formality.
Yep.
It wasn't by design. So people show up and they're not clear about what they should do.
Well, and the other flip side to that is
Mhm.
many job seekers will look at the job description, they'll shiny penny it, they'll see like three or four things that
Yeah,
they know they do really well, ignore the rest and be like, that's okay, because I'm doing these things that I love, not recognizing the ratio of the things they love to the things they don't might
that's
be
true. Yeah,
different.
I'm with you. It takes two
Yeah,
to tango.
yeah,
I'm totally with you.
yeah.
So we're going back to these negative feelings that froth up in culture, which is, I believe, symptomatic of how the business is operating typically.
Hmm.
And so if people are confused about what they should do and their managers are fickle about what they're measuring for success one day versus another day, these are operational. So got to plan what your people should do and how to measure that outcome.
Hmm.
I think another one is good old fashioned, like getting leadership agreements in place.
Hmm.
And so you have all of these different leaders that operate with different values and different tenets, and they have different approaches, and that confuses a culture, right? So if you a good way to solve that confusion is to operationalize through leadership agreements. Like what what does what does that mean, for
Hmm.
example? Well, and so going back to frameworks, a framework we use in our consulting is a thing called PIE. Every leader should eat pie every day. And PIE stands for be professional, have integrity, and have empathy. And
Hmm.
then each of those letters has, several criteria. So
Sure.
when you go to a team of leaders that are struggling with infighting and confusion and right all this stuff, you say, Does everybody agree that you want to be professional? And you list those out. And then as they go to execute, they'll have this real easy to remember, operationalized framework that they can apply when they go to lead. So when they're tempted to, for example, fib or lie about something, right, which is really destructive, right? Or if they're tempted to perhaps cancel another meeting and they become known for canceling meetings and not showing up, not doing what they said they would do, hopefully they can go back to this operationalized sort of formula or framework and go, okay, yeah, we all agreed. If I said I'm going to be in a meeting, I'm going to show up and I'm going to be prepared.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
If somebody is not doing their job, rather than the old way where there's not even a job description, so you can't hold somebody accountable, but you accuse them of not doing their job anyway, a leader can go, oh, sweet, we have your job description. Let's not point fingers at you. Let's lock arms, point fingers at the job description, and let's look at what's going right and what's going wrong. Let's fix it together, and then we'll move on. And then you calibrate operationally. You eliminate subjectivity. You bring in objective, let that be the foundation. So everybody's clear, expectations are managed. And so these are some sort of high level examples.
Yeah,
of
no, they're great.
culture.
So Garrett, who are your clients? Who is the best people to work with ClarityOps?
Well, there are some barriers to entry, typically 100 or more employees, minimum 5 million in revenue.
Yep.
10 I prefer just because of where they're at.
Sure.
But those aside, the most important criteria, Lyndsay, is they got to want it. They got the leaders at the top have to want it.
Yeah.
And you and I both have probably seen leaders in the room that don't agree, don't want to be there. They don't want change. They like the old guard.
Well, and the leaders that say they want it, but then as soon as you provide them with that feedback, they don't want that kind of feedback.
Right.
So
yes.
That's also a challenge because I've certainly seen that.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm with you. So I think leadership at the top, I prefer that call to come from the founder, CEO, president, that sort of thing. And they're looking to transform.
Yep.
And they're willing to make the investment.
So just quickly, what has been your experience after providing them with this framework, with this type of operationalization? What typically happens for our client?
Yeah. So first phase is discovery.
Sure.
And so I really have learned over time, sort of like us, when we go to the doctor, we're like, my knee hurts. They're like, yeah, it's actually not your knee. It's
your foot, or your hip, or
right? Right. So I always like to try to get in and find the truth. Evaluate the symptoms, evaluate what everybody says is wrong, and then get to the truth. That takes some time. Then I like to present it to the stakeholders and say, hey, this is what you thought was going wrong. These are the things you thought were blocking you or preventing you from being where you want to be. And here's what I think it is. What do you think? And then we'll have some good discussions around that, and some great learnings too. From there, we put together a plan that involves reorganizing, re-architecting, repositioning, load balancing. Another thing I use, I built a while back called a quad core management framework. And it goes back to this distribution of workloads across the org. Usually in the planning part, we have to reorganize the org chart actually, because it's so imbalanced. Yeah. And then from there, put some KPIs in place to measure the new outcomes that we want.
Of course.
Right. And in the beginning, those are very short sprints, sometimes even by the week. Over time, it turns into by month. And then I always recommend some sort of maintenance plan where we are coming back and evaluating by quarter. That way we sort of, we're an accountability partner too, so that you don't waste all of that energy and time and money to create transformation and then get distracted by all the stuff that happens, right? So we try to kind of sell a maintenance plan for you, for both of us, right?
Mhm.
And it ends up being a win-win.
Yeah,
So
I love it.
that's kind of the journey.
Cool. All right. Well, changing gears just a little
Oh,
bit. What
okay, okay.
inspires you?
Hmm. All right. So m the thing that motivates me the most, honestly, Lindsay, is being a great dad to my kids.
Hmm.
Like, you know, I think that it inspires me the most.
Hmm.
It's tough, you know, as
Oh,
a
yeah.
it's tough
No
as a
one gave
parent.
us a guidebook or
No, yes, my
no,
wife says it all the time. I'm like, gosh,
they didn't come with a
um,
handbook.
what do they say? Like no person on their deathbed says, "I wish I worked more."
No.
You know what I mean? I wish I did. And so that really motivates me,
Mm.
inspires me to be great for them. Professionally, I think what motivates me and inspires me is watching. All right, this might sound sappy. It totally might, but I'm going to just backfill a little bit and then I'll give you the answer. I had an epiphany 10 years ago, and it was there's nothing worse, in my opinion, than a business paying people to stress out and then take that stress home to their family.
Yeah.
And so,
That's a
um,
pretty, even though that's super simple, Garrett, that is a very evolved leadership principle. And a lot of leaders miss the plot and miss the point that when you become a leader, when you become a manager, you also become everyone's dinner conversation.
mm,
Make
oh
sure
my
it's good.
gosh, the dinner conversation. That's good.
True.
So, like, of course, I want to be a great partner to our clients and I want them to, scale exponentially, increase their profits exponentially, right? Of course. But for me, what's most rewarding is when their people become happy and the stress goes down, where
Mhm.
they flip-flop their culture to convert it into high happiness and low stress with great outcomes.
Oh, I love that.
Like that is, I think that's the win.
Well, that you probably it's going to be the same answer for the next question then, because the
Okay.
next question is, what would you like your legacy to be?
Mm, mm. I'll take the last answer.
I think it's pretty good. I wouldn't mess with it.
I'll take the last answer.
I think it's pretty good. I'll leave it there. So,
Oh.
what's next for Garrett?
I'm going to keep on keeping on. I actually want to make a dent in this statistic that is still charging ahead. 9 in 10 businesses fail.
Hmm.
And I see Gen Z increasingly showing up saying, we don't want to be the old guard.
Mm-mm.
I would rather, I'm seeing this increasingly leaders of Gen Z go, I'd rather leave this job, get paid less, and be cared for, be respected, and have good plans in place
Yeah.
than live in this old way.
Yeah, there's a couple of factors in play. I mean, this is the time we've had the most generations in the workforce ever.
Mm.
And it's really different
Yeah.
managing boomers to managing Gen Y or Gen Z or
Yeah.
Gen whatever the newest one is.
Right.
And I see it in my kids and I see
Mm.
it, with people that were older than me that I managed. And what leaders have to understand is you have to meet people where they are.
Mm.
And I've also seen a real shift in the definition of success, especially for entrepreneurs. But the definition of success is really elastic now. It is no
Mm.
longer just money. Money's
Mm.
important, and that's obviously what's going to keep you in business, but it could be recognition, it could be your employees' success. It could be joy. It could be low stress. It could be a high grade on how your people feel because they work for your company. Like there's a
Yeah.
lot of different definitions of success now. And I think it was always, at least how I was raised and how I came up through corporate, it was make more money, get promoted, increase title, like those are the steps.
Yeah.
And if you did other stuff, that's nice, but this is what was important. And it still is, but it's not everything.
No, no. I like it's a fascinating dichotomy, I think, right? Because the purpose of business, profit or nonprofit, is to profit.
Sure.
Like the purpose of business is to drive revenue and then have create money that did not exist.
Sure.
Right?
Sure.
So like that's fascinating. And yet you have to have generally,
Hmm.
even with AI, you have to have people
No question.
to do these things. Right? And
Yeah.
so I'm reminded of what you just said. Like it behooves leaders and it behooves a business to know their people
Yeah.
and know like when you hire them, also figure out what motivates them, what makes them happy,
Yeah.
you know, and as long as um, their contribution to the business engine is in line with what you hired them to do, and you can also, as a leader, help them be fulfilled
Hmm.
and be happy, or help them get that happiness, however they
Hmm.
define it. As long as they're doing their part, I think that is a lovely place to be for
Yeah.
everybody.
I like that. So how do people find you?
I'm on LinkedIn, Garrett Delph, and ClarityOps is the website. Yeah,
Amazing. Well, guys, Garrett, thank you. This was amazing. I love this conversation. And guys, if you liked what you heard, please subscribe to the YouTube channel. Go leave a 5-star review at Apple or Spotify. I love doing this show with guests like Garrett. I want to continue doing it long past this one. So thank you
awesome.
for listening. Thanks for the conversation. And get out there and lead with heart, everyone. Have a great day. Are you ready to elevate your leadership style and create an exceptional workplace that stands out from the crowd? I'm here to introduce you to a game-changing resource that will transform the way you lead and shape your company culture. It's time to embrace the power of top-down culture. This practical guide empowers your leadership for lasting success, helping you create a workplace where everyone thrives. Get top-down culture today, and let's reshape the future of leadership together. Thanks for listening to this episode of Heartbeat for Hire. I hope you enjoyed what you heard. If you did, please subscribe to my YouTube channel or consider leaving a 5-star review and a great rating at Spotify or Apple. Thank you so much for your support. Have a great day.